Operation Get Chris Out of Here by 1:30 commencing.
Yeah, so it's don't worry. You got to be also, Operation Dan needs to eat. It's all good.
We'll see. We'll see how we go. I'm going to try and throw it to you and then eat while we podcast. That's my plan. Nadia,
I'm going to give the shortest. I'm going to give the shortest answers possible.
You fucking bastard.
You'll be like, what did you think of this? I'll be like, yes.
And I'm like halfway with a bit of half food halfway to my mouth, like, okay, and then I have to take it from there. Anyway, roll the credits in case I use this bit. Hello and welcome to Analysing Avatar, the podcast where we take a look at episodes of Avatar and, of course, Korra, one by one, and review them. This week we're on Book 2 of Korra, Spirits, Episode 10. Can you believe we're on Episode 10 already, Chris? Feels like we started this only yesterday.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's called a new spiritual age.
Called Book 2 Spirits. All the spirits.
Very spirity this week. Let's just have a little check-in with the spirometer. How spirity was this episode, Chris, on a scale of 1 to spirits?
I'll have to tell you, Dan, it was spirits.
Spirits, yeah, I thought so. I thought it might be. So for those who don't recall, this is the episode in which Korra and Jinora travel through the spirit world.
It's so many spirits, Dan. It was verging on the extra category you can get sometimes, which is after spirits comes spirits, brackets, lots of them, close brackets. We were nearly at that point.
And there is one just beyond that that's spirits, too many of them.
Yes. Yeah. And then there's one just beyond that just says, joke's getting old now, lads. Quit while you're ahead.
Yeah. Rule of
brackets.
Rule of three.
You were never ahead, close brackets.
So this is considering we're on a timer today, this is not the day to be playing around.
No,
which is always what happens, isn't it? Whenever we know we're on a timer, we end up dicking about more. I don't know why. But yeah, this
also,
is the episode.
As the audience know, we're much more concise. So you saying we're on a timer has just made the audience, anyone listening to this, be like, oh, phew. Maybe we won't hear about Doctor Who Season 4, Episode 12.
You probably will. Was there a Season 4, Episode 12?
Yes, Season 4, Episode 12 would have been The Stolen Earth.
Are you sure?
Yeah, because there were 13 episodes at that point.
There were 13.
So, yeah.
I thought, for some reason, I only thought that was a 10, 11 episode season, but there you go.
And,
right.
and was it The Stolen Earth?
It was. Yeah, you're exactly right.
Boom.
Not a terrible episode, but the one that follows it is awful.
I don't mind Journey's End as much as you do, but anyway.
It's terrible. Absolutely awful. Anyway, thanks everyone for joining us. This week's the one where Korra and Jinora head through the spirit world, and we learn some stuff about the light and we're thinking happy thoughts. And it mostly, the main plot thrust of this is actually just those two getting together and meeting at the spirit portal so they can close it. And in the end, when they get there, Jinora is being held captive by Dodgy Rock, as Chris has called him, Unalaq, and her life is threatened, or her spirit is threatened, which Unalaq forces Korra to open the other portal, setting the stage for when harmonic convergence comes, a new battle for rights to rule between the light spirit that is in Korra and the dark spirit that is Vaatu. How are we feeling, Chris? What are we thinking?
I enjoyed it, Dan. I really enjoyed it. It was, it's one of those strange, it's like a little. Obviously, it's advancing that specific plot, but there's only one plot. So it's kind of it's a very concise. We like episodes of Korra where it's not juggling too much, and this is very much juggling one thing. I think the animation on the spirit world is beautiful. I think they created a lot of tension in the spirit real world by splitting them up. Obviously, absolute joy to see Iroh back.
Yes, yes.
And the library.
I've been
was full
looking
of stuff
forward to that element of this for a long time. Like when we started Korra, one of the things there's 2 or 3 moments throughout all 4 seasons of Korra, I thought, I really can't wait for Chris to get to that. I think he'll enjoy that. And one of them was definitely Iroh's return.
Yeah, because I think it makes so much sense for Iroh's character as well. Like, it really tracks. And it was really, really strong for that reason.
Right.
I liked all the library stuff. That was full of references that I'm sure are references. And through a lot of that, I was like, well, I look forward to the Triv section and fully understanding this. Because
You've forgotten the library episode from the original series?
I know, I remember the library, and then they chase, and then the library, like, implodes. Isn't that the one where, like, Jet really unceremoniously dies?
No, that's later on when they're in Ba Sing Se.
Right, okay.
No, basically, that's...
There you go, see? Hold on. Oh, wait, Dan. I think I've proven my point.
Yeah, right.
References I knew were references, but couldn't quite remember and look forward to. I'm like, well, Dan will explain this to me later, and here we are.
So Jet goes to Lake Logai, which is where they send people to be brainwashed. The Dai Li send them there in the original series. That's where Appa is being held, and there's a big thing where they all go underneath the lake into the caverns to rescue Appa, and I guess someone else. And they find Appa down there, and Zuko is down there too because he's gone to kill the Avatar or something, and he ends up freeing the bison. No, he goes to the bison because he thinks the Avatar's going to show up. Anyway, there's a whole thing. Jet, the gang, Zuko, Appa, Aang, they're all down there, and it all kicks off, and then that's where Jet dies because it starts to collapse. Basically, it's all under a lake. So that's a separate thing that happens later in that season. But about halfway through that season, before they reach Ba Sing Se, they find a library out in the desert, and they're looking for... Oh no, that's when Appa gets nicked, basically. That's when Appa gets taken from Aang. Is they go into the library looking for information on the Fire Nation that they can help them win the war. And that owl's all like, yeah, but don't do anything dodgy. Just for knowledge. I don't want you seeking out military secrets or whatever. Sokka obviously breaks that rule. The library starts to be taken back to the spirit world because the owl's like, I'm fed up of humans taking the piss with all my knowledge. And they leave, but they're with a professor who told them about the library's existence in the first place. And he, as this library is sinking, is like, no, I want to die here with all this knowledge. And that is the skeleton we saw this week in Korra. So he said go. So when the owl, whose name I sometimes remember and sometimes forget, it'll come back to me later. There'll be a point later when I'll say it really naturally and it'll just be in my brain. Wan Shitong, there it is. Wan Shitong, the owl, sort of says, the last person who tried to stay here forever is still here, and it shows a skeleton. That's the professor that Aang went in with back in the day. So yeah, it's cool. And those foxes were like in the real world stealing information and bringing it back to the owl. That's why the library is so full. They get a copy of these books. They get they bring back secret scrolls and stuff. They're like spirit foxes that go out and find information, which is why the owl gets annoyed when the information he has about radios are wrong. In this episode, which is a great moment.
Oh yeah, and like looks to the fox. I found that very funny.
Yeah, it's a great. So you're right. There are tons of references. I suppose tons of references is exaggerated. It is the library they visited, and it contains that professor that we know perished there. His skeleton. So that was his fate met. So yeah, let's talk more generally about the episode because I got mixed feelings on this one, Chris. Shall I start with the big thought? Because I've got a big thought.
Give me a big thought.
I think the show can be better than this. And
that is a big thought.
Yeah. Because I think this episode is a massive missed opportunity, right? So I like the idea that the emotions of humanity become reality in the spirit world. I think that's a lovely idea. Because I think there's a few things that work about that. First of all, it explains the link between the two. Humanity's emotions shape the spirits and the spirit world. They're separate worlds physically, but they're linked emotionally. So in some ways, Unalaq is right when he says humanity and people are why darkness spreads through the spirits. Their darkness reflected back at them, right? Lovely. Tick. Then we have Korra going into the spirit world and her lack of control of her emotions, which has been her number one problem as a character. The journey she's been on constantly is that her own emotions and her lack of balance within herself is what always gets in her way. She's always snapping and jumping to conclusions and going in headstrong because she's letting herself be guided by her emotions. And it explains why she's not very in touch with her spiritual side. Again, tick. So we have her in the spirit world, and the spirit world is turning around her because she's unbalanced. How do we resolve that? Well, do we learn something about Korra? Does Korra learn something about herself? Do we see major change in Korra? No. Iroh says, think happy thoughts. And Korra goes, okay. And then she does. Now, I just feel like this episode is a massive missed opportunity to help us learn something a bit deeper about Korra. Have her face something about herself, her lack of spirituality, her constant struggle with letting her emotions getting the better with her, instead of just be happy and think happy thoughts bring the light. Nothing is scary as it seems, which is nice but simplistic. Couldn't we have tied this to a real situation that Korra couldn't get past about herself, a real trauma she has, a real fear she has about herself, and have her face that fear? Because the spirit world morphs around her and forces her to face that fear, and then she gets over it.
Are you saying you think that would have been better than her taking a bird up to a mountain?
I don't mind the metaphor of the bird up to the mountain. I don't. As a visual, that's fine. But I just don't.
No,
think...
it is quick. I was literally like, oh, she's an adult again. Okay, well, I guess she got the bird up there safely. Cool. Okay.
And I like that the bird's a baby when she's a baby, and they both grow together, and therefore when they get to the top of the mountain, they're both adults. And the little dragon bird is like a huge, awesome creature. When it's older, I love all that, and I like that's what helps her get to the portal. I also like that bird comes back and fucking yeets Unalog, just like he's gone. I love that. It's all great. I just think we missed a massive opportunity to learn something deeper, more interesting about Korra here. Or have Korra learn something deeper and more interesting about herself. And actually overcome
I think that's
her character stuff. Because you think imagine this show in the hands of the Steven Universe writers for this episode. Think about how they were able to get deep character stuff through during plot in their show, alongside what's going on in like 10 minutes. This episode had twice that length and still didn't manage to do it. And it's not a bad episode, but it really feels like there was a missed opportunity. And I feel really strongly about it. And it's the one overriding thought I had coming out of it. And this might be a sort of third, fourth, whatever I'm on, rewatch of the show, watching it to analyse it for a podcast sort of thought that would not have ever occurred to me on a happy, just enjoying the show, taking it in, maybe binging it sort of view, which we've talked about a lot this series. And I do think that is a factor. So I don't know. I mean, how did that strike you while you were watching it? Or is it something you're thinking is probably true now in hindsight? Like, how did you feel about all that stuff?
I think I thought I didn't think it in those words. I didn't think it as eloquently. But I definitely, like, all joking aside, when they sort of just are suddenly at the top of the mountain and then they're adults and the bird's back, I was like, oh, okay, that seemed quick. like I didn't manifest it as oh, she's not learned something about herself and all the stuff you just kind of eloquently said. But I definitely felt a sense of, oh, that's surprising that has been resolved quite so quickly, seemingly through a task as opposed to learning. Although again, I can't take credit for thinking about it in such eloquent terms. But I definitely felt like that was resolved a bit quickly. And was a bit like, I felt that even if I didn't necessarily term it like this, I definitely felt that lack of learning.
Right, because I just feel like this is like a perfect opportunity for us to really learn something about Korra. She's in a world where her own emotions literally affect the world. And that seems just like, I don't know, such an opportunity. I really, maybe disappointing.
No, I think that's fair.
Missed opportunity. I'm going to stick with that. So yeah, I just think, as much as it was nice to see Iroh, have Iroh ultimately saying, I wrote it down actually. This is how we sum up what Korra learned this episode. Even in the material world, you'll find that if you look for the light, you can often find it. But if you look for the dark, that's all you will ever see. Which is a really nice quote. But I feel like that should be supported then by Korra physically learning that and experiencing that and learning something about herself. What's her light? What's light for Korra? What's darkness for Korra? Is it self-doubt? Is she bravado up front, but she has self-doubt inside of her? Could we not have explored that, maybe? How does that translate? That's a really great starting point for an episode. Iroh, even in the material world you find it, if you look for the light, you can often find it, but if you look for the dark, that's all you'll ever see. What's that for Korra? What is it that she latched onto? Oh God, we're gonna do the double bill, Chris, because I'm gonna make a Harry Potter reference here. When we talk about Harry Potter and we talk about the Patronuses, we always talk about what the character is thinking and feeling of when they get there. What happy thought is Harry using to produce this thing that pushes away darkness? And every time that happens, we learn a little something about Harry, right? Even his fear of the Dementors in those early books is teaching us about his fear of fear, and that's something that Lupin even says to him. We don't learn anything about Korra here. It's just so generic. It's just light, dark. Okay, I'll look at the light then. Cool. All right, so yeah, I don't know if we're going to get any further on that one. There's no solution to that other than just that it was a disappointing lack of actually tying it to anything tangible for Korra. Maybe we'll get there. Maybe.
What do you think? There's something they could have cut to make more room for that then?
I don't think it needed more room. I feel like it just needed to be in the text that we had, layer it into what we have more. It's like an extra ingredient on what we have rather than actual scenes, if that makes sense. I just think when Korra is young and she's gone up the mountain, we needed imagery to give us insight into what Korra was going through. We needed maybe an extra line or two of dialogue when she's talking to Iroh that might hint at what her fears are, and when she overcomes it, maybe instead of it just being she's overcome it, the thing that she's trying to achieve is a manifestation of the thing she's scared of. Maybe if you want to go down the route of she's scared of her brash overconfidence, she comes across as a barrier to taking the bird up the hill, a version of herself that is that overconfident version of herself. And she has to literally overcome it. I don't know, just something to give us an idea of what it is that she's battling internally.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think that would have elevated the episode, and like you say, would have done. I didn't particularly feel it, because this is my first time watching it. As you say, it's your third time and or whatever number of time, and all that sort of stuff. But I think you're right, especially when you say, and you shouldn't, compare things, elevate one to bring down another. But I think you are right in the hands. You imagine this episode in the context of Steven Universe, and I think maybe that would have been elevated.
Yeah, and the fact that I'm struggling to think of something actually really points out another flaw that we're actually having, which is that the Korra character, her journey is muddy. Her character arc is muddy at this stage. What is she actually struggling with? Because, again, in a show that had done the groundwork already, we'd already know what Korra's struggles were. And then representing them in this episode wouldn't have taken up much more time. We'd have just needed to layer it in visually. to the goal she has to achieve in the spirit world. You know, the bird up the mountain is a nice visual, and it's a metaphor for, as Ira puts it, sort of like, you know, seeing the light and seeing things that seem scary aren't scary. But that's so generic, and it's non-specific to Korra. I guess the way to make it specific to Korra is actually build in a more clean and obvious arc for her this season. And that's the reason, even when you ask me what would you have done, it's like I'm grasping at straws because I don't really know what is Korra's arc. Where is she as a character right now? What is she struggling with? Just the plot. She's struggling with the plot. She's not struggling internally. Her character's not growing. Her character's not. Yeah, the barrier is she's not good at spirits. All right, why is she not good at spirits? Are we going to actually get into, like, why is she so struggling to control her emotions?
Yeah, her connection to, like, the crux. Obviously, there's some, you know, she's annoyed with Dodgy Rock, and she, you know, well, she doesn't call him out, but Gennaro calls him out in this. But you could also argue, like, I
wish she was called Gennaro. That's a much better name. Gennaro.
I didn't know what Gennaro. Right, okay.
Yeah. It's fine. No, I couldn't resist. Every now and then you pronounce it wrong. If I don't reference it, there'll be 10 comments.
No, that's fine. No, it's more because I must admit I didn't know her name, but then earlier on when you were doing the recap, I was like, "Oh, is that her name?" Okay,
Korra and Jinora. Yes, so this is Jinora. Then there's Iki, and then there's Milo. Milo's the young boy that has fart bending. Iki's the girl that had the tea party, and Jinora is the older one that's a bit spiritual.
So upset about the fart bending, like a fart, Dan. You just need to let it go, my friend. You just need to release it into the wind. Like the crux of it, you know, she's the big battle now. The big what this season now is, which is stopping the solstice or whatever it is, and stopping. Yes, the light, like you say, is within Korra, but it's a real, like, legacy thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, but then again, I suppose to some degree with Avatar, it always is. You know, yeah.
And look, the season's not over yet. Maybe as we get to the end, it'll all become clearer, right? And this episode was just the first step on that journey, right? Because it is a serialized show, so maybe I'm being too harsh. Maybe in the last episode, I've forgotten it, but they have a moment where someone says to Korra, "Hey, you need to get over your, you know, whatever your personal issue is, or you're never going to be able to connect enough to the spirits to be able to help with this situation." And maybe that's going to force her to reckon with something. Maybe that's still coming, and this episode is just a preamble, like a mild setup of that. But I don't recall that necessarily. And I still don't really feel like this episode functions as well as it could have without a bit more character exploration. This was the opportunity to lay out what her deal is. Because you feel like as we head to the end of the series, it's going to be plot, which is fine and is how it's supposed to be. But when you have episodes that are little breathers like this is your opportunity to do character stuff. So that the plot stuff in the finale and the last few episodes feels earned. So yeah,
I agree. And like, and I love the plot stuff. Like, you know, it's very, you know, light v dark. It's very, you know, traditional. But I'm in. I really like it. Especially Dodgy Rock saying, "Don't believe everything you've read." I thought was very intriguing because obviously we saw the flashback. Dude does just want to take over everything, but does he think it's something? I hope they pull more on that thread.
Yes.
I was like, well, what is his motivation, and is there a reason? What is he looking to get out of it? And is there something that contradicts what we've seen, maybe even? And I thought that was particularly intriguing.
You're right. That's a really great line. I zoned in on that myself. It's a really cool idea, which is like, you know, Jinora's like, you know, how could you? So Jinora says to Wan Shitong, the owl. She says, like, how could you have sided with him? He wants to destroy everything. And Unalak, or as you have him, Dodgy Rock, does sort of say, like, yeah, you know, don't believe everything you read, which I thought was really funny because she's in the library, she read books. So you're right, it does hint that there's more to his plan. And what could he possibly have in mind that spirits like Wan Shi Tong is like, ooh, I want that. I'm going to support you on that. What is it he's offering the spirits that have made spirits like Wan Shi Tong, who is notoriously difficult to negotiate with, very stubborn. They really had to talk to him a lot to get access to the library back in the original series. So what's Unalaq sort of offered him? Well, at least what does he lie? Even if it's not real, what does he lie to him about and pretended this harmonic convergence will do? Because Janora's version of that. So I've got this quote, which is, I think this is like, so this is what Janora reads is happening. The elders believe that as long as the portals are closed during harmonic convergence, Vaatu will remain imprisoned and the battle between good and evil will not be fought again. But if the portals are opened, both portals, spirit energy is amplified greatly. During harmonic convergence, the energy will be great enough to allow Vaatu to break free from his bonds, and the material world will again risk being consumed by darkness. So that battle they have every so many thousand years, Vaatu and Rava, will happen again if both portals are open during harmonic convergence, which is obviously what Unalaq is up to. But what does that mean? What does he think Vaatu is going to bring to the table? Has he been lied to? Has Vaatu devil whispered in Unalaq's ear and promised him things that he's not actually going to pay up on? Who knows who's lying to who at this stage? Or if anyone is lying.
Yeah, they could all be, right from their point of view, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Or it could very well be that Vaatu sort of is very much playing a sort of devil figure in this scenario and has promised, all these amazing things. I'm being joined by food. As promised, this looks amazing. Thank you.
What is the food?
So, Chris, this is bacon and cheese on a croissant that's been toasted.
Oh.
Nadia says, tell Chris, I'm sorry, I've never made him such a good breakfast.
She hasn't, actually, yeah.
He's
That's
right. Yeah,
very fair.
He's agreeing.
Gets a fucking bowl of cereal and told to shut the fuck up.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, when you come, Chris, you get given a bowl of cereal and told to shut the fuck up.
I don't know. I don't know if I've ever eaten anything for breakfast in when staying with you other than toast.
Well, it's usually because we're doing something. Chris is saying when he stays here, we usually just end up having toast. Because we're usually like trying to get out or get recording. Or...
Yeah.
There you go. Nadia's promised if you come and we're not doing anything, she'll make you a nice breakfast. There you go.
Yeah. She's got to, yeah. I take it very personally.
Yeah. So this is bacon on a croissant with cheese, and it's all been toasted. It looks delicious. I'm going to take a bite.
That sounds very.
I'm going to do at least one bite while it's hot.
Oh yeah, mate, yeah. Eat away. I've crunched. I've eaten like sourdough toast on the podcast before. I thought it was funny at first, but then I quite liked it. The Tenzin side of things, because at first the dialogue is very much like, I can't believe my little girl's going in there and then not me, and I was like, oh, are we undoing like his acceptance and growth at the end of last episode, and then it becomes clear that he just means like he's calling her little girl out of like affection. That's his little girl in there, and he's worried for her. Mm-hmm. And I think that sort of balance of, you could have easily written this as him thinking about Korra, but and thinking about the kind of, what I liked about the Tenzin plot in this episode is that it plays as a father worried about their daughter, as opposed to Aang's son worried about the state of the world and the outcome of everything that's going on. I thought playing it father and daughter was the right move. I also really enjoyed, just to give Dan time to eat as much as possible. I also really enjoyed the sibling stuff at the beginning. Boomy being like I can't remember his sister's name,
Kaya,
but her being very
Kaya.
Being very much like, well, we'll stay if you need us, and it just I can't remember what the line was now, but him No, I can't actually. Oh, if spirit stuff goes down, like he wanted to be there, and then he's like, oh, and also to help you, obviously. I thought that was that all played out very well.
It did, and I think it really helps with the cliffhanger of this episode as well, because for those who don't recall, the cliffhanger of this episode is actually hits quite hard, because Korra returns from the spirit world, Jinora does not, and Tenzin's panicked, Korra, what happened to my little girl? The delivery by J.K. Simmons on that was heartbreaking. It was like genuinely heartbreaking. Brilliant. And I thought what was really clever about that was like all the stuff you were talking about them demonstrating he wasn't feeling he wasn't feeling frustrated by not being the one doing it from a I should be the one, I'm supposed to be a spiritual leader thing, which is what we got last week. And it was just pure concern for his daughter. Fear that she's in the spirit world, she can't protect herself because she doesn't have bending, which obviously plays part into that conversation at the beginning with Bumi and Kaya and Tenzin, because obviously Bumi's like, I don't have bending, I'm fine. It's very clear it's coming from a place of concern for his daughter. So when that ending happens and his daughter doesn't return but Korra does, and she's like, I'm so sorry, and he's like, what happened to my little girl? That really hits quite hard as a cliffhanger.
Yeah, it absolutely does. In many ways, it has. In terms of great cliffhangers, it reminds me of season 4, episode 12 of Doctor Who: The Stolen Earth, which of course ends with the Daleks, attacking Sarah Jane and Torchwood getting attacked, and then the Doctor regenerating. Yeah, so just saying, that's the logical, unforced parallel. It's a great cliffhanger, and I think the exposition in this episode is handled very well. The montages and us getting that information. As I said last week, I love a countdown. It feels very Avatar to be like, right, well, shit's gonna go down when this happens. So enjoyed that. I thought the two portals were a lot closer together than they were in the shot last week. Last time, which those portals are really varying lengths away from each other depending on what the plot needs. Like, we've had shots of those portals where it looks like they're miles apart from each other, and we had shots this week where it looked like they were basically a football pitch apart from each other.
I think that's spirit world shit. I think perspective shifts. It's not a physical world, is it? It's literally not a physical world with like geography as such. It's like a shifting, ethereal place.
And I would like to give you a gold statue because that was some excellent fansplaining.
Because isn't there a shot early in this episode where Korra is like looking at something and then it's really close all of a sudden because the space shifts around her? Did they not establish that in the episode?
Yeah, and Iroh says it as well. Iroh says, it's shifting around you and stuff. Speaking of that. Little baby Korra, little child Korra. We've not spoken about that. What did you think about that?
I think baby Korra is like maybe one of the closest things this episode does to using this as an opportunity to explore Korra. Like, I guess it gives us this notion of in this world, in the world of spirits, she feels like she's still a baby learning. Right? Is that the metaphor? Is it clear?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So I like that. I mean, could it have been clearer? Yeah, maybe. I think... Sorry, I'm still trying to finish my last mouthful. I'm just going to swallow. Food while podcasting is a terrible idea. I'm just so hungry. For those listening who aren't obviously familiar with the circumstances, I worked until like 3:30 last night a.m. Got home at like 4:30 a.m. Got about 4 or 5 hours sleep, and then was straight up to watch and do this, and I hadn't eaten yet. Absolutely starving.
And for anyone thinking I'm cruel, I did suggest we didn't do it, but Dan, like the trooper that he is, wanted to power through.
Yeah.
What?
So the kid, baby Korra. I mean, I don't know. Did you feel that metaphor was clear? Like, did you walk away from the episode thinking? That's, that baby Korra is a representation of how much of a child she feels in the wake of the spirit world, and that she's not, because her knowledge of spirits, it's like being back at square one. So, or is that not what the metaphor was? I mean, I don't know. How undefined is it in this episode?
No, that's how I took it, and especially you got to remember she's just been tricked. She's just been tricked into opening the portal. She's irritated. She's that sort of. I really liked it when she sort of stamped her feet and got stroppy, and the world began to change, and Iroh had to explain it and stuff. I thought all that stuff was great. I thought and again, I know we talked about it. I mentioned it briefly before, but a shout out to the animation. All of that stuff looked great. That sort of dinner table, the almost trippy visuals when they first enter. There was Alice in Wonderland vibes from the way that the spirit world was visualized, and I feel like we haven't really had that before, particularly. Like maybe we have, and I've forgotten or whatever. But it was just. I thought it was really textured and a really interesting stance on it. Geronimo, or whatever her name is.
Geronimo.
Genora's look of wonder and Genora's, comments about how much more pronounced the spirits were in their own world. I thought all of that stuff was great.
Yeah, I would agree. I think visually, it's such an interesting, and obviously the great thing about the spirit world is it's got this built-in ability to just look different because it's not a physical world. Doesn't exist, so it can just look however it wants. And the idea that it's linked to the sort of emotions of the person in question, when Korra feels safe and comfortable and she's around Iroh, and she, suddenly it's this really delightful, lush green place with all these nice colours, and they're having a tea party and it's all lovely. And as soon as she's out on her own and she's struggling again, suddenly it's a mountain that she has to climb up. And the things that are coming after her, they're like lions, they're like angry lions, and then she's like, give me a hand, I think we can be friends. And they're like, cool, your emotions are more balanced now, we will be less angry at you. And then obviously they end up with Unalaq, who's, emotions clearly are the other way, I guess, I don't know, and it all turns into they're angry again, which I think is neat. It's not a very deep, nothing in this episode is as deep as it could be. That is the issue, because again, what about Unalaq makes things turn evil around him? What's his deal? Is he doing that through spirit magic, or is he just actually are his emotions so dark that things go dark around it the way that things were light around Korra?
Yeah, maybe that would make sense. But I think this episode shows he's the puppet. Do you know what I mean? It's not his grand plan at all. It's just
you think this is all Vaatu being the devil on the shoulder.
We're talking about Dodgy Rock being the puppet.
Yeah. You're saying Dodgy Rock is kind of been manipulated, or at least guided very heavily by Vaatu.
Yeah, for sure. This is Vaatu's master plan. And speaking of, I've got a question. Now, I'm pretty sure the answer to this, Dan, is going to be you just weren't paying enough attention, Chris, or had missed that, or. But obviously, he calls the bird Rava as the bird and Korra ride off.
I don't think he does he?
I'd swear he says something like, "You think this is over, Rava? We'll meet again," or something like that.
Yeah, because Rava and Korra are merged. They're one.
But do we see them merge, or is it just because she merged with one, therefore she?
Yeah, Rava and the Avatar are one in the same now, and they have been since one merged with Rava.
Cool. Right, cool. Yeah, that's what I thought, but I just wanted to double check that that he was talking to Korra, not the bird.
Yeah, so from Vaatu's perspective, Korra represents Rava. She is Rava. He's just ignoring the Korra part. He's like, I don't know, you're inside some flesh thing, but Rava, I know you can hear me. And I'm coming for you. This Saturday, Spirit Mania, I like the idea of Vaatu as like a professional wrestler, like a what is it, Randy Savage, this Saturday at WrestleMania, I'm gonna show you what for harmonic convergence is gonna come, and I'm gonna smash you, I'm gonna give you a suplex into the mat. I like the idea. I like wrestling Vaatu. It's better. Why didn't they go that way, Chris?
They may still. There's still time.
There is still time. You're right. All right, so let's see if there's some of the details we can sort of pull out. 'Cause we talked. I think this episode has a surprising little amount happen in it, so we can't pull as many details out. We talked about the library, obviously. We talked about the dragon. We talked about the teapot. We talked about Iroh. I think we've covered a lot of this episode, actually. We've genuinely been efficient. God, we're 40 minutes in, and I'm feeling like I'm running out of stuff to say on this one.
Yeah, well, it's also because there's one main plot, and I think it's when things like Spirit. Do you know what I mean? Like Iroh was great. It was great to see Iroh. It was it was a logical progression of his character's story. But there's not. Do you know what I mean? That's pretty much. We can't stretch that out into 5 minutes, so I'm not surprised that this is. Not only do we need to be more concise, but genuinely, like, I finished the episode, and when you were like, "Oh, it's not gonna," we should be fine. This probably won't go long. I was like, "Well, no, it can't," like, in a way, because it's the episode is succinct.
Do you think that's a reflection on how simplistic some of this is, though? Do you? Because my concern throughout this episode, one thing I've said a few times now about different elements of this, is that everything could have been a bit deeper than it ended up being. Right? This episode in a slightly better built season, on the whole, from a more sort of stepped back overview, it's looking pretty thin right now in terms of like character development and some of the other stuff. And an episode like this could have been a really key pivotal one, but I just feel like everything just felt a bit undercooked. It all felt a bit simplistic. Villains a bit mustache twirly, bringing dark. Hero bringing light, learning to bring light. It's just all very simplistic, and I feel like we're not really getting into anything with real depth. And is that why I'm like, hey, God, shit, we've run out of stuff to talk about already?
I think, I do think that's fair. Thematically, it's very, like I said earlier, light v dark. But also, I think that's fair. But the main thing, in terms of specifically, is there much to talk about or whatever? Any sort of I think any episode where it's all dedicated on one thing. And even some of that one thing is, fantasy to some degree. I know the spirit world is a real thing, but, when they're having that sort of almost Mad Hatters, like those two spirits have got married, sort of Mad Hatter-esque tea party, there's not too much to analyse on that. Do you know what I mean? The same way episodes which are mainly comedic, it's a similar thing.
I chose the wrong time to take a bite.
Sorry,
this will be forever known as the episode ruined by Dan's hunger.
No. I should have talked for longer. Sorry, but do you know what I mean? So I don't think that's, yeah.
So where are we at then? So I mean, as a season, it's feeling thinner than I remember it. As an episode, I had a good time. I like that we got to see the library again. I think it's really fun to bring that back and to meet Wan Shi Tong again, to see the fate of Professor Zay from the original series. Just died doing what he loves, hugging books. He was fucking weird in life. He's weird in death. That's all good. I do think we got some nice character stuff from Tenzin this week, even though he's in it very little. It was nice to see Iroh again, but I'm not sure how much he contributed.
You know what? I think he honestly with that. I think he concentrated the amount he needed to contribute. Like, I think that was bearing in mind that Iroh was old in Avatar. We're never gonna get, apart from maybe a flashback, we're never gonna get Iroh any other way. So to discover that he really went full spirit and decided to live in the spirit world after passing on. I thought actually the Iroh stuff was perfection. He helped he tells Korra what she needs to do, where she needs to go. So he's valuable to her and valuable to the plot. It's logical, it's fun. We got there was like the tea references and stuff and him talking about rather being carried around in the
teapot.
like teapot, but
Yeah.
also then just taking the excuse to chat about tea. Honestly, I thought the Iroh thing personally, I thought was perfection.
I guess I'm attributing some of the lack of depth to Korra's plot to Iroh, because it's Iroh that guides her on that journey. So in my head, because he's saying sort of simplistic things, look for the light, which is always a good starting point, as I said at the beginning. It didn't end up having that depth, so I'm kind of attributing that as part of the Iroh plot. But you're right, in terms of how he was used, he was exactly what he should be, a spiritual guide for Korra. It's not his fault her character is paper thin at this stage. That's not the fault of that character or his use here. You're right, this is the perfect use for Iroh. And any issues that I have with the execution are actually more related to the lack of depth in Korra. So yeah, you're right, that's fair. Yeah, and again, I love the idea, and I said this right up top, I do love the idea that humanity's emotions and humans' emotions control the spirit world or have effect on the spirit world. It shows why these two civilizations couldn't coexist, really, why Avatar 1 chose to separate them, I don't know, there's a lot of really nice ideas in this, just like I said, lacks that depth. And I like the little dragon bird. I like it when it's a baby, and I like it, the big old giant phoenix type thing. That's pretty cool. And again, it just yeets.
Yeah.
It just yeets Unalaq at the end when it comes in and saves Korra. It's so good. He's just gone. Like, it's so good. Man, if a person got smashed with a tail that big at that kind of speed, it would not survive. Thankfully, I was going to say Unalaq's in the spirit world, but Unalaq's in the spirit world with his physical body. Korra should be fine.
Yeah, because he went through the portal, because that was specifically a plot point, because she couldn't bend, but he could.
He could. So really, if she wants to go back in there and fight, she needs to get into one of those portals physically. And frustratingly, they're at the north and south pole of the real world, which are controlled by the water tribe, which is controlled by Unalaq. So. So I do feel hopeful that there's some good stuff coming, but this was a slightly frustrating one in that I just felt like it didn't go far enough. Could have done more. So yeah, I don't know. Any final thoughts on the episode before I get into the trivia and stuff?
No. I enjoyed it, but it was filler is completely the wrong word, because it categorically moved the plot forward and was fun, and it's quite. I really loved the Tenzin stuff. Like I said, I thought some really smart choices were made there. And there's almost no middle ground, is there, with this season of Korra? I think that's what we're learning. Like, if it does just one thing, if an episode has just one plot and they focus on it, we're a bit like, was there too much to that? There's not much to say. Could they have done more? And I think your example here is perfect. They could have done a real character exploration, but they didn't. And equally, when it's all plot and it's scenes for the sake of it, as in they're putting in scenes for the serialized story, not the episodic series. I in particular criticise that. So it's weird. There's no middle ground of either an episode that's juggling a lot plot wise, but giving that each plot room and space and a decent amount of time. Or, arguably the episode not, I think, last week, but the week before, we really praised that one and really enjoyed that, and I think it did do that. But equally, we haven't had a piece focused on one thing that is, unbelievably full of character explanation. Although maybe, Beginnings was that. So I think there have been examples of it, but I feel like it's not the majority of the season.
Yeah, and I do think that a lot of these complaints, if they picked a character, let's say Korra, the title character, and given them a more clear character arc, then episodes like this would have stuff to anchor to. But her arc is just, she wants to solve the plot problem. And she's meeting barriers. We're not really actually exploring the thing that they hinted at they were going to explore at the start of the season, which is her specific struggles with spirituality. We're exploring them in a plot sense, but we're not exploring them in a character sense. Yeah, and I can see how they got here, but it feels undercooked. The ideas are good. The execution is lacking. It feels like it almost needs another script writing pass to sort of more embed in a clean character arc for Korra across this. And I feel like episodes like this wouldn't suffer if they'd done more of that in the rest of the season.
I think that's fair.
And this is often thought of as like the worst season, but I always have fondish memories of this one. I'm always surprised that people don't like this season that much. People generally tend to think the third and fourth seasons are the best seasons of this show. And I used to challenge that and go, no, there's good stuff in the first two. There's really good stuff in the first two. I like Amon as a villain. I like how his plot ends. I like Korra's early struggles with airbending. The spiritual stuff's really great. We bring in Varric in this season, but actually, having rewatched them and reanalyzed them for this, I do think. I mean, I think this. I am starting to come to the conclusion this might be the worst season, because I think season one really just suffers for its last episode. Really, that's the biggest point of failure for season one. Is its last episode is a bit of a mess. And if you see our podcast on that for more details. Whereas it feels like this season really is uneven throughout, and it's really lacking anything to anchor it down character-wise. And again, it's that age-old thing I talk about so often. If you can't invest me in the characters, then how am I supposed to care about what happens to them in the plot? And this is where this season is failing. So I feel like I am starting to feel like maybe I am going to come to the conclusion this is the weakest season of the show, even though previously I would challenge people that said that. I go, no, there's good stuff in all the seasons. I think I think it's becoming kind of clear. I don't know. We'll see. There's still, 4 episodes left? I don't want to be too much of a Debbie Downer. But, which is a phrase I've literally never used in my entire life until that moment. But,
And it didn't roll off the tongue smoothly, did it?
What a great first opportunity to do that.
There's already 4 episodes left. Oh, wow.
4 or 3?
I thought it was a 16-episode season, and if we've just done 10...
I think it's a 14-episode season.
But maybe it's not a 16-episode season, and I've got that completely wrong.
Yeah, I think it's 14. Yeah, so we got 4 episodes left. It's 14 episodes. Night of 1,000 Stars, Harmonic Convergence, Darkness Falls, and Light in the Dark.
Well, it sounds like the harmonic conversion happens, and darkness falls.
Yeah, the titles aren't exactly subtle, but I mean, I don't think we can be shocked that the thing they've been teasing happening all season is going to happen. I mean, the minute they put a timer on harmonic convergence is coming, that's during the time in which the finale probably will take place, or at least the last portion of the series. We've got some stuff. We got some stuff coming up. I'm excited to find out if they can land this in any way, shape, or form and pull this back together in a way that is at least passable. Because it's definitely been a very uneven season. I stand by my love of the beginnings episodes, but the rest of the season is definitely a lot more flawed than I remember. And if people go, well, wait a minute, the first couple episodes you were enjoying them. Yeah, the setup was good, but it's very easy to set something up. It's very hard to successfully pay it off and land it. That's the challenge. There are lots of good ideas in this season. So yeah, the first few episodes are great. They laid out those ideas. It's whether they then actually got to explore and execute them as they wanted. That's the question. So yeah, time will tell. So with that all in mind, and this episode thoroughly analysing Avatar, title of the podcast, let's get to the trivia. Let's triv it up! I'll give you some trivia. So we already covered some of this stuff, obviously, but obviously the episode bears many similarities to the episode The Library, which was also the 10th episode of the second book of the original show. So that's a weird coincidence that it's lined up as the 10th episode of the second book in both. Obviously, both episodes feature Wan Shiton and his library, as well as the abduction of a close companion of the Avatar that leaves them in tears. Of course, the library episode of Avatar ended as the library sank, with that being the opportunity for those sandbenders to kidnap Appa. And when Aang got to the top, Toph was like, I'm really sorry. Appa's gone and Aang is all upset. And this episode ends with Jinora now having essentially been abducted in the spirit realm. So, yeah, there are striking similarities. Jinora obviously coming across Professor Zay's skeleton is a direct link to that episode also. But also, it's similar to Aang finding Gyatso's remains in the Southern Air Temple, which I think is the second or third episode of the original show. So yeah, those are those. Iroh's advice to Korra about finding the light within herself parallels a similar piece of advice he gave Aang in the Crossroads of Destiny about finding the light at the end of a dark tunnel. And then final piece of trivia. The circular design in the book that Jinora looks through before asking a knowledge seeker for help is the same one used in the trailer for this very series. That circular symbol was used as iconography in that trailer. It was apparently originally aired in the 2013 San Diego Comic-Con, that trailer. That's where they released it. Which is funny because we're actually recording this as Comic-Con is on. Comic-Con is happening right now, Chris, while we're talking.
Yeah, I mean, usually that would be like, but like, no one, like this year, although, you know, fair play, a lot of people, I heard, I think it was on, I think it was Fat Man Beyond, so it was Kevin Smith and Mark Bernardin, and Kevin Smith was sort of saying, you know, DC aren't there, Marvel aren't there, and he was just like, what's Comic-Con going to be this year? And Mark Bernardin was just like, a convention for comic book fans to discuss and celebrate comic books. It's like, oh yeah. So, you know, fair play to its traditional values, but I'm not worried. I'm not worried that there's a slew of news we're missing right now, Dan, are you?
No, there've been a few things announced, but nothing too exciting. A lot of comic book stuff, obviously, you know, they've announced, I think, you know what, I'll have to go back and double check, because do you ever see a headline, Chris? Sort of go, really? And then you don't get a second to click on it and read further. And then it's sort of, you start to doubt you even read it in the first place. Like, I read it briefly while I glanced at my phone yesterday as a headline on, like, you know, on Reddit or something. I think they're doing a Justice League versus Godzilla versus King Kong comic book, which sounds fucking nuts. And I think they announced that yesterday. Brilliant. I mean, yeah, I mean, why not, right? Like, why not have the Justice League fight Godzilla? Christ, you've tried everything else. Let's go. So yeah. But yeah, I think they've mostly been. It is mostly been comic book stuff, and I think they put out a new trailer for the new Spider-Man game that's coming out later this year, which just looks cool. They put out a trailer for the Rick and Morty anime series they're doing, which is a really interesting idea. So yeah, I think there might be
Is Doctor Who there? I don't think they are.
So yes and no. I don't believe there is a Doctor Who panel, but Doctor Who are present on the floor. They're selling the new sonic screwdriver and, you know, promoting that way. So they have a little stall on the floor with, like, you know, a couple of props. I think they've got David Tennant's suit from the upcoming specials on display, and then they're selling the new sonic screwdriver.
Right. Okay.
I assume that's a Wild Stock's Last situation. I don't imagine they brought a huge number of those to the convention. But yeah, they're £30 though. That's expensive for a sonic screwdriver. Anyway, it's a good prop, but £30.
I still love, like I said to you the other day in text, I still love that Ncuti Gatwa got announced in a press release, and there's a whole like minute-long video about the screwdriver.
Madness. Absolute madness. Anyway, a lot of people think that screwdriver is a hint that we're getting Doctors 11 and 12 in the specials, because it has pieces of each of their screwdrivers in the screwdriver. So could be.
Well, that would be great, but
could be.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Who knows?
Time will tell. Anyway, by the time this podcast is going out, maybe we'll know. Maybe there'll be a new trailer that's revealed more. I don't know. Who knows? Or maybe it'll have aired. Christ, I'm not sure when this podcast actually goes out to the world. But anyway, thanks everyone for listening. Actually, no, we got no. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry, Chris. Feedback from last series.
I was gonna say. Yeah.
Hit it.
Oh God, I haven't thought of something.
Okay. Wait. Sorry. You think of these ahead of time?
Sometimes I go piano or sexy or whatever. Now I'm going kooky improvisation. I think the fact that they're talking about feedback from last time that we didn't respond to, because or indeed feedback from this time. Boo!
Hi, I'm Dan, and welcome to feedback from last series. This is feedback from last series, and this is an interesting one. This is a YouTube comment we got. I just thought this was an interesting point because we talk about, you know, you talked about it in a few episodes. You didn't bring it. It didn't come this week because it wasn't as relevant. But, you know, missing Team Avatar. You know, It was an element of the original
one of my big things. Yeah,
an element of the original series you feel should be in the DNA of this series too, even if they are trying to differentiate the two.
No, not necessarily should be. No, because I think I went into more detail about it last time we talked about it. It's not so much last week, in fact. It's not so much that I think it should be in the DNA of the series. It's that it's one of my favorite things about the world of Avatar personally, and I would personally like to see it more in this show because of how much I loved it in Avatar. But I've always been it's very personal. Except for when like they're referred to Team Avatar that way anyway, which happened in season 1, even though they're not really a team. But yeah, It's more about just me personally loving that element of the show and wanting to see it. So
this commenter has kind of got a point, well, I think that I'm kind of missing a little bit from the original show. That's a little similar to that. It's not the same as that, because I think that's quite a big thing. This is a smaller thing, but it is something I wish the show would do more of. So this is Kremoto, who put this comment on the episode for Turning the Tides. And it says, and this is referring to, if you remember from last season, there was a point when they were having a fight, and Korra's polar bear dog, Naga, knocks the guy away. Like, just, jumps in and saves the day, basically, during a fight. And I was talking about how much I enjoyed that moment. And Kremoto, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right, has said, I think the moment where Naga hits that guy would hit better if Naga was an actual character with screen time. Heck, where is the little fire ferret thing? They clearly wanted to do Appa and Momo with these two, but they barely appear. Imagine if they'd replaced Appa with a car halfway through season 1 of Avatar The Last Airbender. It's an interesting point.
Very fair.
I do feel like the animals of this series are just kind of there because this first series had animals, and they don't really seem very interested in characterizing them. Appa and Momo did have a lot of personality. Is that fair?
It's absolutely fair. Yeah. They had personalities. They had, I would argue, like, Appa had an arc at one point. Like, not by this point within the show's lifespan, but...
Right.
Yeah,
so, then you look at...
Appa's arc series too.
And then you look at, like, Pabu and Naga, the two sort of animals that regularly appear in this series, Pabu being the fire ferret, Naga being the polar bear dog. What's Naga's character? Loyal to Korra. Will be there for Korra, okay? And what's Pabu's character arc? Bit mischievous, maybe? Or not character arc, but like character. Like, bit mischievous, I guess? It's about as much as I can come up with. They don't feel like they have the same level of personality. So there's a part of me that goes like, if you don't really have much interest in characterizing the animals, maybe don't put them in the series.
Yeah, I would say that's fair.
Yeah. No. So I don't really have much to add to Kremoto's point other than observing that is a really good observation.
It is a
bit of a problem. It's a smaller problem than the Team Avatar thing, but it is an issue.
No, but I think these things are all relative, and like I said last week, you got to acknowledge that. You got to go, well, they're not doing the same thing in this show, like, and that is fine. But it is so funny the weight in a way that any form of sequel or like you only got to look at. We really have done the triple, I think here. You've only got to look at like Star Wars. Like people get upset when Star Wars isn't what they want it to be, right. And it's so funny. It's one of the biggest challenges of sequelizing something where the show will or the franchise will mean different things to different people, and people will take different things from it. And we've got two examples here with the animal stuff and my Team Avatar stuff. That this show has no responsibility to do either of those things. Although I would argue, like I say, with the Team Avatar stuff, they did refer to them as Team Avatar in season 1. So,
and I would argue with the animals, by putting those animals in, clearly sort of a little echo of Appa and Momo. It's like you got it, but you're not doing anything with it. So why did you do it? Like, why have the team say we're the new Team Avatar if you're not going to explore or actually do anything with that information other than just go, hey, do you remember Team Avatar, previous series? And the same with having these two animals. If they're not going to do anything with them, which they very rarely do, why are they present? Other than just to go, hey, do you remember
Also
Avatar?
very fair. Yeah.
It's why I compared it.
very
When
fair.
I read that comment, it jumped out at me. It's why I started. Excuse me, I chose to eat a tiny thing before I spoke there, which I shouldn't have done. But the reason I chose to start that before I read that listener's comment with, your Team Avatar stuff, because I do really feel like these two problems are actually very parallel to each other.
I've got to give you a lot of credit, Dan, because I think you have been way more restrained with that croissant than most people would have been. The fact that you still have any left.
Well, I had two. It was two
madness.
croissants, and there's bacon and cheese inside
Right.
each of them. They're not like just a normal croissant.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, like, I'd have eaten both by now. The fact that you've, had the respect to... How much have you got left of it?
I've got half of one, so I've eaten 3/4.
Right. I just think, fair play to you, Dan. I got a lot of respect is what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
it's been staring at me the whole time, and I'm so hungry. It's going to be gone the second we finish this.
Hey, if people want to... Oh, sorry, you were going to say something else about that.
No, I was going to do what
Sorry,
you were about to do.
sorry.
I was going to do what you were about to do. Move us on. Which
Oh, right.
you hit me with
Hey, Dan,
with your segue. Yes, Chris.
If people want to congratulate you, and if listeners want to say, you know what, Chris is right, Dan, that croissant eating was very well reserved in order to not interrupt the podcast much. Thank you for that. How would they go about doing that?
Well, they could say that, or Dan, it was pretty grim to hear you talking with your mouth full, at least at 2 points during this, which is the other side of that coin. You're welcome to put both those feedbacks, if you wish, to us via the many means in which you can contact us. Means one is, of course, to head over to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/nothingbutstaticuk. Find this episode uploaded on YouTube, get into the comments, and stick them down there. I will say, also a great way to potentially end up in a feedback from last series segment. If you put your comments there, I do sift through those. We do read all the comments. This is the thing. The reason I'm doing this feedback from last series is I do read the comments, and they're always really interesting. As always, our listeners are way smarter than we are. And I always want to get their feedback. I just don't always have time to reply because we the amount of episodes we have up now, we do get comments coming through quite regularly, and I'd lose my days to replying to them. So I am sorry that I don't reply very often, especially these days. I used to reply a lot more. But keep them coming because I'll keep pulling out the interesting ones and doing feedback from last series as we go. I don't see any reason why not. Also, it gives Chris an excuse to sing, and he loves to do that. So everyone wins. So yeah, that's one of the places you can do it. If you also have feedback for us and you don't want to put in a YouTube comment, which is understandable, YouTube comment section is a scary place. You can email us, mail@nothingbutstatic.co.uk, or of course, you can head over to our Patreon. Sign up there for as little as $1 a month, and that will give you access to our Discord, where you can leave comments there. Some of the feedback from this season has come from that too. Obviously, with the Patreon in mind, you also get access to episodes of this very podcast 1 week earlier. So if you want to hear our next episode, which I believe is called Night of 1,000 Stars, you can hear that right now. If you're listening to this on iTunes or Spotify or whatever podcast app of choice you have, and you're thinking, God, I'd love to hear that next episode right now. Again, as little as $1 a month over on the Patreon, A Night of 1,000 Stars will already be uploaded. And there's a special RSS feed there for that and our other podcast Rewind reviews, which we put up episodes early of, and our special bonus podcast, Nothing But Lyrics, where we review the lyrics of songs we remember from our childhood and try to decipher them or make fun of them, or sometimes both. Good time. Always a good time. We actually need to record another one of those soon. Looking at the dates, I've just realised we need to get on that.
That crossed my mind the other day.
Yeah. It comes around way too quick. It's a short podcast. It's not much hassle to do, and it's also quite a fun one. But it always sneaks up on us, doesn't it? Always seems to sneak up. But yeah, so that's all the ways in which you can sort of contact us and support us. Of course, other ways you can support us if you're not interested in giving us money, which is very understandable. I wouldn't give us money either, not for this nonsense. But if you do want to support what we do because you're enjoying the podcast, you can tell a friend. You can go over to the app of your choosing and support us by reviewing. So you go over to the YouTube channel, you go over to iTunes, Spotify, whatever app you use, like, subscribe, comment, review, whatever format they have for interacting with the podcast. Generally tells the algorithm you enjoyed it, and then makes it more likely to share it with others. So that helps too. So tell a friend, do that. Or, of course, the main thing, keep listening. Love it. Love a bit of keeping listening. Do that.
Very grateful. Grateful for the listens.
Yeah. And sometimes here I do a bit where I go, and if you're not liking it, don't worry about it. Off you go. Thanks for giving us a go. But you know what I'm going to say this week? I say, fuck you. To that person. Because I'm feeling sassy, and I just think, like, what are you doing? Hate listening? We're like 70 episodes into this podcast now. What are you doing? Seek help. If you listen to everything up to this point and you're not enjoying it, what are you doing?
Hate listening to a man slowly eating a croissant over an hour? Like, fuck you.
Yeah, fuck you. No, we appreciate you giving us a go, but yeah, should seek help. Just why do you do this to yourself? Would be my question for you.
Yeah. Apple TV exists.
Do you think that person actually exists, though? I always say that, partly as a joke, but I do always wonder, is there someone hate listening to this? We don't get a lot of negative feedback.
It's difficult, isn't it? Because have you not? I've listened to stuff I don't agree with, and weirdly sometimes just to kind of be bamboozled at the nonsense they're saying. But it's interesting because I'm not even and some of the stuff I'm talking about would fucking deserve to have comments. But I'm not a put negative shit into the world kind of guy. So I would never. It would take on an awful lot for me to put a negative comment anyway. But I've definitely listened to, like Nerdrotic is an example, where you and I have both listened to Nerdrotic, despite not agreeing with the nonsense that is being discussed. I've
never listened to a Nerdrotic anything.
Really? Have you not? Even like a clip?
I other YouTubers have played clips that I've seen, but I've never ever clicked on any Nerdrotic anything. No, absolutely no interest.
Right, fair enough.
Yeah,
fair enough.
Yeah,
fair enough.
Well, because every view is money in that wanker's pocket. Like, no.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
No, I don't support any of those reactionary right-wing grifters. No. Bad people. And also bad critics, like bad at analysing media. I know I'm a fine one to talk.
Yeah, the best way to experience this.
Huh?
Sorry. Say that again.
I was just saying, I'm a fine one to talk, but fucking hell. Like, even I know what they're talking about is fucking bullshit.
Yeah, the best way to experience their shit is through Mr. TARDIS, really, isn't it?
Yeah, because he sometimes covers it. A few YouTubers I watch will occasionally, there's another one called Pillar of Garbage, who's a really great YouTuber. He's done some really good videos, sort of taking down the viewpoints of some of these guys. Not necessarily Nerdrotic, but some of the similar sorts. But yeah, no, I don't engage with them, which is why it's always to me. I'm always just like, I don't reckon anyone is hate listening to this. But then if you are genuinely checking out the content of Nerdrotic, then I'm going like, fuck, maybe someone is.
Only after, not not fucking subscribed or anything, but if there's a Doctor Who announcement, I am often oh, what's this prick got to say? But then again, I suppose I haven't done that for a while. I think the last time I did that was...
I guess it must work, though, because these people do it for a reason, right? That gets views. And whether that is the majority of people going oh, what's this prick got to say? Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's how it works. Maybe that is the grift.
In which case, we loop right back round to thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, no, thanks everyone for listening. As always, we appreciate you very much. Of course, go support the work of Rapho, the artist that gave us that Apparate Sunset art we use at the beginning of our podcast as the main core art for our podcast and at the beginning of the video version. Raphodraws, spelled Raphodraws. You can get them on Instagram, instagram.com/Raphodraws, launchlinks.io/u/Raphodraws. Go support them, and they're great art. They have a Redbubble account where you can buy various products with their art on it, and it's well worth it. There's some really cool stuff there. They've also got, I believe, a graphic novel that you can buy digitally, which looks great. I've still not read. I need to do that. It's been on my list for so long. I'm now worried it's probably not available anymore, but I'll go check into that after this, and I'll report back next week. But yeah, go support the work of Raphodraws, even if it's just a little follow on Instagram and a few likes on some of their artwork. Do that. Lovely. Cool. That's everything for this week.
Sure.
Thanks everyone for listening.
Excellent artwork.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's great. And, from a variety of fandoms, not just Avatar stuff. There's a bunch of Avatar stuff on there, but there's also a bunch of stuff relating to other various cool animated properties.
Yeah, go.
And then some original stuff too.
Go for the Avatar and get lost in everything else.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Yeah, so that's everything for this week. Thanks everyone for listening. I've been Dan Doolan.
I've been Chris Billingham.
Oh, I've been Chris Billingham. The little extension on the eye. And that has been everything for this week on Night of a... no, what? What am I doing? That has been everything for this week on Avatar. We'll see you next week when we sit down to review Night of 1,000 Stars. I nearly named our podcast Night of 1,000 Stars then. That's been everything on Night of 1,000 Stars, our podcast about all the stars. Bye. Bye.